Hi everyone, Yasas, que Carlos to another episode of Dimitra's Dishes. Today we're going to be making smash burgers. You will not want to eat another regular plain old burger ever again once you have these or try these and make them. They're super simple to make, a definite crowd pleaser, and just all around juicy and delicious. Let's get started. So you want to start off with the best ground beef that you can get. A chuck roast is really good. You want a high fat content. So about 80 to 85% lean to about 15 to 20% fat should be in the burger, so your burger is going to be nice and juicy. You do want to set up a little station so that way everything goes smoothly. You're going to need some parchment papers, and I cut them into little 5-inch squares. I started a little bit bigger. I think these are like 6-inch rectangles, but anyway, 5 inches is the perfect size, and you're going to see why. You're going to use them to separate the burgers, and this is if you're making it ahead of time, which I do prefer that you smash the burgers ahead of time than doing it on the grill, which is more traditional. You want to have a little kitchen scale handy because each patty should be between 2 to 3 ounces in weight. 3 ounces is what I prefer. So let's see, that is 4, and there you have 3. So it's about the size of a tennis ball, maybe a little bit smaller, and get them into rounds first. And then we're going to smash them. So if you're making a bunch for a crowd, I highly recommend that you do this step first, and then you can keep them in the refrigerator until it's time to cook them. So make sure you clean your surfaces well anytime raw meat comes in contact with them, so that way there is no contamination. So I usually make burgers and food in general for a crowd. We have 5 kids, so I usually have to make big batches of things. So I like to do the prep work ahead of time instead of smashing them directly on the grill, even though I will show you that method as well. So you form the meat patties into balls first, and then you're going to put it between 2 pieces of parchment paper, and you can press it down with your hand first, and then you can take a meat mallet, the smooth side, and just hammer it a little bit like this. Just press it out until it's very flat and round as you can make it, just like that. And then you can go ahead and put it on your tray, and you keep going until all of them are done. That way, once it comes time to grilling these, everything just moves super quickly. You just lift one out and you'll see how easy it's going to be to do this, because they literally take a few minutes on the grill and then they're ready. And smashing the burgers in this way is gonna keep a lot of surface area on the beef, which is gonna create nice caramelization, and it's also gonna keep them nice and juicy, and they cook super quickly. So there you have it. You can just pop these in the refrigerator until you're ready to use them. In the meantime, we're going to make the sauce. So this is my go-to burger sauce that I use on all of my burgers. And you're going to need about ½ a cup of really good quality mayonnaise, whatever your favorite mayonnaise is. And I'm just eyeballing this because I have the measurements on the website, but you can put as little or as much of each ingredient as your heart desires. About a ¼ cup of sour cream, or half the amount of mayo. About 2 tablespoons of ketchup. You could use barbecue sauce if you prefer. About a tablespoon of mustard. It can be Dijon or plain. And some black pepper. If you want a little kick of heat, you can put some sriracha sauce in here. And basically just mix this all up, and that's it. The sauce is ready. This stays fresh in the refrigerator for days, so you can keep this on hand and put this over chicken, fish, really whatever, but it's delicious on these burgers. Lastly, you want to get the toppings ready. So go ahead and thinly slice an onion. Now I have some lettuce over here that I'm just going to thinly slice. You can leave the lettuce out. I'm not the hugest fan of lettuce in a burger, but my kids like it, so I'm just going to thinly slice some lettuce, and I'm going to put it in this bowl to rinse it out and then drain it. And I'm just gonna put it on some paper towels to get rid of all of that excess water. I have some really good quality cheese slices. This is medium cheddar. You can use sharp or whatever favorite cheese you like. And then some pickles. Can't have a burger without pickles. And you just wanna have the buns ready too. And now we're ready to grill our burgers. So before we start grilling the burgers, what I like to do is season the patties on one side, on the top side, because this is gonna be the side that's gonna go flat on the grill. And I just do some simple salt and black pepper, that's it. You can put some garlic powder on this if you like, and that's it. We're not gonna do the other side until the burger is on the grill. So I have this electric grill pan that I'm using. It's plugged in and it's at 400 degrees Fahrenheit. That's as hot as it goes. So that is what I'm gonna use. But you can definitely use a cast iron skillet, or if you have one of those skillets that go over burners, you can use that. Whatever you have is what you use. You don't have to grease the pan or anything like that. Go ahead and put the burgers on the grill, and you want to make sure that it's super hot. And now season the other side as well with some salt and some black pepper. And we're going to cook these for about 1 to 2 minutes, or until you see that some of the juices have come up on top. I also like to toast the buns for a little bit, just so that they get nice and warm. Then go ahead and flip them over. And they're just going to cook for about 30, 40 seconds, max a minute on the final side. So I like to put a slice of cheese on top of one of them, one of the patties. And I also like to flip the bread over. And now it's time to just assemble your burger. So this is the bottom of the bun. I like to put a little bit of onion, some lettuce. Of course, you can slice some tomatoes and put them on top too. Some pickles. Also, underneath the pickles, I like to put a little bit of the burger sauce. Get the burger on top. Some more sauce, and it's ready. Time for the taste test. I am obsessed with these. The patties are juicy. They're perfectly thin, but they're actually just the right thickness. I know that some restaurants make them a little bit even thinner than this, but I like them at the 3-ounce size, so that way you get a nice hearty bite. And just like I said, it stays juicy on the inside. It gets that caramelization on the outside. That sauce and the veggies go so well together. I'm gonna be teaching you how to make my loaded Greek chicken souvlaki bowls. They're so good. They're perfect for a weeknight dinner. You can serve these to guests. This won't heat up the whole house because we're gonna be cooking the chicken souvlaki skewers in the air fryer. But of course, if you have somebody to grill for you, you can totally throw these on the grill. Let's get started. Okay, so we're gonna begin with the chicken. We're just gonna marinate it really well. And I'm using chicken thighs, boneless, skinless chicken thighs here, because they stay so juicy. Even if you overcook them by a little bit, they'll still be juicy. So you can definitely substitute chicken breast, but you have to watch it very carefully when you're cooking it. So I'm doubling this recipe because these taste so good the next day. They're perfect for taking to work, for lunch and things like that. So I have 4.5 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken thigh meat here. To it, I'm gonna add some olive oil and freshly squeezed lemon juice. You can do vinegar instead. For the 2 pounds, which is what the recipe is written for, you need about 1/4 cup of olive oil and 1/4 cup of lemon juice, but you can definitely add more if you like. 4 garlic cloves. By the way, I'll just be going over the recipe as if it was 2 pounds, just to skip any confusion. 4 garlic cloves that have been grated, or you could add more for more flavor. 1 heaping tablespoon of dried oregano. 2 teaspoons of salt. I also like to add some cumin powder to this. 3/4 of a teaspoon to 1 teaspoon for 2 pounds is enough. Then freshly cracked black pepper and some crushed red pepper flakes for heat. Mix that all up, toss it all together, so that way the chicken is coated. And then I realized after I tossed it that I should have cut the chicken up into smaller pieces. So I just went ahead and I just roughly chopped them so that way they thread onto the skewers easily. You don't really need skewers for this. You could leave the chicken whole if you want to make it more simple. But if you are threading it onto skewers, you can cut it up like I did, or you can double up the skewers if you'd like. I'll leave it up to you. Set that aside. You can do this step overnight and leave it in the refrigerator, or 30 minutes on the counter is fine. We're going to move on to making the tzatziki now. I've made tzatziki so many times on the channel. Just grate a cucumber. I like to peel it and then grate it. Put it in a strainer and season it with a little bit of salt to help those juices release. And you want to make sure you get rid of all of those cucumber juices so that way your tzatziki is nice and thick. In another bowl, go ahead and add some Greek yogurt. I also like to add a little bit more richness with sour cream. This is a trick that my mom taught me, and she adds plenty of sour cream to her yogurt when she's making tzatziki. Add as much as you like. 2 to 3 garlic cloves that have been grated and a little bit of freshly cracked black pepper. Whisk that all up, drain the juices from the cucumber and add the cucumber to the tzatziki, mix it all up, and you can chill this in the refrigerator while we get everything else prepared. So I'm also serving my bowls with some roasted potatoes. They're gonna almost look like French fries, but they're gonna be so good and a little bit healthier because we're not deep frying. I have 5 to 6 russet potatoes here. I've already peeled them. I'm just gonna rinse them in some cool water and then pat them dry. And then I'll cut them into pieces like this. I'm never very precise, but if you get them all around the same size, they'll cook evenly. So that's important. Put them in a bowl, drizzle lots of olive oil on top, season with salt, freshly cracked black pepper, and lots of garlic powder for flavor. Toss it all up, and then I like to transfer it into a baking tray. Try to get them all in one even layer, and the oven is preheated to 425 degrees Fahrenheit. This is going to bake on the center rack for about 35 to 40 minutes or until they're golden and crisp all around and tender in the center. Try not to move them around. I don't even flip them over while they're baking because potatoes, while they're roasting, they tend to stick to the pan, and if you try to mess with them, you'll break them up. So I mix them up after they've sat at room temperature for like 10 minutes, and they release really easily from the pan. Potatoes are ready. We're gonna make the rice now. So I'm making my Mediterranean rice pilaf for these bowls. It's so good and comforting, and everybody loves it. So I'm making a bigger batch of rice today. So I have 4 cups of rice here. This is Carolina rice that's just soaking in cold water. I'm gonna drain the water out, and then I'll heat my pot up over medium heat, add some butter to it, lots of butter, about 4 tablespoons, and I use salted butter for this, but you can use unsalted butter, you can even use olive oil. And then these vermicelli noodles, also known as fideh, I love to add these to my pilaf. I'm gonna add them to the pot and just toast them in the butter until they're nice and golden. That just takes a few minutes, so keep an eye on them. Mix it around so that way they don't burn. They do tend to cook really quickly. I'll add the rice that's been drained to the noodles. A little bit of fresh lemon juice, about 1/4 cup for all this rice is perfect. You could add more or less. I'll leave it up to you. Season it with 4 teaspoons of salt, lots of freshly cracked black pepper. And then for even more flavor, I like to add chicken broth. So 4 cups of chicken broth are going in here. You can do this in water too if you like. Bring it to a boil. Once it starts to bubble, reduce the heat to a low. Put the lid on the pot and let this simmer for about 20 to 25 minutes. Fluff the rice up, and that's it. The rice is also ready. Now it's time to cook our chicken. So before we do that, I'm going to cut up the veggies that are going to go with it. So today I'm going to be using some zucchini, red onions, and bell peppers. You can mix it up to use your favorite veggies for this. You can just do onions and bell peppers. You could add some tomatoes in here if you like. If you have eggplant, that also works well in here. These are some of my favorites, so I'm just going to cut them up into around the same size as the chicken. And then I have these little bamboo skewers that I bought on Amazon because they fit in the air fryer. So go ahead and thread the chicken and the veggies onto the skewers. I like to put 2 to 3 pieces of chicken and then veggies, enough so that way they fit onto the skewer. I'll put them on a baking tray, and then once all of the veggies and the chicken is on the skewers, all of that juice that's in the bowl that the chicken was marinating in, I'll pour it on top. I will also drizzle a little more olive oil on this and season with a little more salt. You can season the veggies ahead of time, but then they become slippery when you're threading them on the skewer, and that can become dangerous. So I just do it afterwards, just a little drizzle of olive oil, and they'll get plenty of flavor that's already in the chicken. I'm going to preheat my air fryer to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, and then I'll put as many skewers fit into the basket. So I can get about 6 in here. Try not to overcrowd it so that way they cook evenly and they get nice crunchy pieces on parts of the chicken. The souvlaki skewers are going to cook about 6 to 7 minutes per side. It's best to use a digital meat thermometer to check the temperature so that way you don't overcook it. Once it registers 165 degrees Fahrenheit, it's ready. Take the skewers out of the air fryer and set them on either a baking tray or a platter, and just keep cooking them as you need them. You don't have to make the whole batch. This is a great recipe to have just ready on hand. You can put all of your skewers onto a baking tray and keep it covered in plastic wrap in the refrigerator so you can use it for 2 days. They'll stay fresh the next day too, and you can air fry them as you need them or grill them as you need them. And now it's time to put the bowls together. I just put lots of rice into a bowl. I'll put some chicken skewers on top of the rice right there on the side. Lots of those roasted potatoes and that creamy tzatziki on the side. I also like to squeeze some lemon juice on top because it adds some more freshness. If I had parsley chopped up, I'd sprinkle some parsley on top and it's ready to serve. Okay, so they're ready and everything smells so good. It's so comforting. I love this smell. It takes me back to my childhood. Let me taste it because everything smells so good. And the vegetables are perfectly cooked. Literally, they take about 15 minutes in the air fryer. Can't beat that. Oh my goodness. That rice is lemony and fresh and buttery. The chicken is moist. I'm going to teach you how to make my favorite Greek appetizer ever, dolmadakia. They're basically grape leaves, stuffed grape leaves. I'm showing you how to make the ones without the meat. I have showed the ones with the meat in the past, but I'm kind of redoing the older recipes just to update them and add some more information and just make the videos shorter and better for you. Let's get started. Okay, so we're going to begin by making the filling, and I'm going to finely chop an onion, get it into my skillet, add some olive oil, about a 1/4 cup or so, and let this cook over medium-low heat until the onion is nice and soft. You don't want to get any color on it. It'll take about 10 minutes for that to happen, so just keep an eye on it. And then while the onion is cooking, we're going to just prepare all of our herbs. So I'm using fresh parsley and fresh mint. I couldn't find fresh dill in the supermarket, so I'll be using dry today. But if you have fresh dill, you're going to need about a 1/4 cup of it chopped up. I'll finely chop this parsley and mint and just transfer it to a little plate so we can garnish everything later on. So once the onion is ready, I'm going to add 1/2 cup of rice. This is just regular rice. I'm not using basmati rice today because I want it to be a little bit creamier. So I'm just using regular jasmine rice from the supermarket. Toss it in the oil and onions until it's nicely coated. And then we're going to go in and add fresh lemon juice. I juiced 2 lemons, so this is going to go in with a cup of water, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and some freshly cracked black pepper. Give everything a mix and bring this to a boil. Once it comes to a boil, reduce the heat to low and let this cook for about 6 to 7 minutes or until that rice has absorbed all of that liquid. It's still going to need some more cooking, but we're not going to finish it off at this point. It'll finish cooking in the grape leaves. At this point, turn the heat off and you can add a teaspoon of dry dill or the fresh dill, and then the parsley and finely chopped mint. Give everything a nice mix. Take it off of the heat and set it aside to cool to room temperature while we prepare the grape leaves. I'm using actually jarred grape leaves today, and this is my favorite brand. Their grape leaves are always fresh and they're rarely ever torn. This is the company that I recommend. I'll put the link in the blog post and down below where you can get them online, but I usually get them in a Middle Eastern or Mediterranean specialty food store. Rinse them really well under cold water into a colander and just drain them. Then I'm going to take them and just a few bunches at a time and just snip off the stems because they're hard and you don't want bites of that in your grape leaves. And next we're just going to lay them out in an even layer. So you can cover your whole counter and do this all at once, but I'm doing it on a cutting board, so I'll take a few at a time. You want to take the dull side and make it face up where the vein is kind of showing, and then the shiny side goes face down. And we're going to take a tablespoon of that delicious filling and put it on the bottom of the leaf, roll it up a little bit, and then take the sides and fold them over the filling. And then we're just going to roll up until it's tight, but not so tight where they rip when they're cooking. I like to keep them a little bit on the chunkier side. This is how my mom always made them, and they just taste a little bit better to me. I feel like when the rice has more room to cook, they're just easier to eat if you ask me, but if you want to make them more long and tight, you can do that if you want, but try it this way. You'll really like it. Line the bottom of the pan with some grape leaves, and I didn't even wash my pan. I'll wash it later on. And then arrange the grape leaves in an even layer, very tight together, so that way they don't move around when they're cooking. I had lots of really good quality grape leaves left over, so I went ahead and made another batch of the rice filling just so that way these don't go to waste. While you're making these, it is a good idea to double or even triple this. They keep fresh in the fridge for like a whole week, and they taste good on salads and on pretty much everything. So we're gonna arrange them in the skillet and then drizzle a little bit more olive oil on top. I like to also squeeze some lemon juice. and then line the top with some more grape leaves, and then I like to weigh them down with a plate so that way they don't swim around and open up while they're cooking. Now we're just gonna cover them with some cool water. So just pour enough water until they're fully covered. Put the pot over the heat, over medium-high heat, and the lid on. And as soon as they come to a boil, reduce the heat to low and let these simmer for about 35 or 40 minutes. Once you check on them at the 35-minute mark, there still is going to be some liquid in there. As they're sitting and coming to room temperature, they'll absorb all the rest of the liquid that's in the pot, so don't worry about it. It is going to look like there's a little bit extra in there, but it's going to be gone in about 20 minutes once they reach room temperature, and then they'll be ready to serve. Okay, these smell so good, and like I said before, you can serve these room temperature, freshly cooked once they've cooled down, or they taste even better straight out of the fridge the next day and even the day after and the day after that. They stay fresh for a long time in the fridge. I love to serve these drizzled with more olive oil and lemon juice, and then a little bowl of tzatziki. They just taste so good together. It's a great combination. Time for the taste test. I love these. They take me back to my childhood. They're so good. They're so light. I like them when it's a little looser like this. If you look inside, the rice kind of has room to breathe. When you eat it, it's just really nice and light and lemony and briny from the grape leaves. I'm going to teach you how to make pineapple coffee cake. This has become one of our favorite cakes around here. The pineapple makes it so bright and sunny, and it's easy to make. It all comes together in one bowl. Who doesn't love a crumb topping on a cake? I mean, this is just delicious. Let's get started. We're going to begin by making the crumb topping. In a bowl, I'm going to melt 4 ounces of butter. This is unsalted butter. If you're using salted butter, then leave the salt out. To that, I'm going to add 2/3 of a cup or 150 grams of granulated sugar, half a cup of flour, a pinch of salt, and the zest of half a lemon. Mix that all up until everything is combined, and then you can pop this in your freezer while you make the batter. Next, we're going to prepare the pineapple. So I'm using canned pineapple today. I'm using 1.5 cans because you need 1.5 pounds. And these are pineapple rings, which are very sweet. That's why I'm using them. They're so simple to do. If you have fresh pineapple, that works too. Just reserve 6 of the rings for the topping and then cut up all the rest and set them aside. In a big bowl, go ahead and add 6 ounces of unsalted butter. Make sure it's nice and soft. 3/4 of a cup of granulated sugar, a teaspoon of pure vanilla extract, a teaspoon of pure almond extract, and begin whisking that all together. If you have a hand mixer, you can use that. I'm just using a whisk because it's just easy. It works, but I am going to need to add the eggs at this point so that way everything mixes properly. So 2 eggs that are at room temperature are going in, and then I'll just continue to whisk this until everything is nice and smooth. In a bowl over here, I have 1 2/3 cup of all-purpose flour. That's about 238 grams. 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder, and I'll also add the remaining zest that's on this lemon. Whisk that all together, and then before I add the flour mixture in, I'll add half a cup of Greek yogurt to the butter-egg mixture. Whisk that all up until it's combined. Then add the flour. Whisk it all up until the flour is incorporated. Next, we're going to add the chopped up pineapple, and I'll switch to a spatula, and I'm just going to fold it in until it's coated in all of that batter. I have a 9-inch round springform pan here. This is the one that you use generally to make cheesecake in. I love using these because it's so easy to release the cake out of the pan afterwards. Make sure it's greased. You could use the butter that was left over on the wrapper, or you could spray it with some baking spray. Transfer all of the butter into the pan and smooth out the top. Add the pineapple rings on top, and then it's time to take the crumble out of the freezer. It's going to be one even layer, so just break it up with a fork. If it's still not completely set, if it's still a little bit thin and watery, you can pop it back into the freezer for another 5 minutes while your oven preheats to 350 degrees. Break the crumble all up together and then top it over the pineapple. Spread it out so that way it evenly covers the cake. This is going to bake at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for between 55 minutes to an hour. The crumb topping is going to be nice and golden, and the cake is going to be very moist. Let this cake cool to room temperature, then carefully remove it from the cake pan, transfer it to a cake platter, and it's ready to serve. Once it sits on the counter for about an hour, it needs at least an hour to cool down. It'll settle and it'll just be perfect. I always underbake my cakes a little bit rather than overbake, because once you overbake them, they're so dry. Then everybody just eats the crumb topping and leaves the rest of the cake. This cake smells amazing. It tastes so good. Let's do the taste test. Oh my goodness. It is so good. Cannot tell you how moist it is. The crumb topping is perfectly crisp. Tastes like a cookie on top. Tastes like there's shortbread on top. It's so good. The pineapple is nice and sweet. It's a light cake, perfect for a cup of coffee or hot tea. I'll show you how to make my chicken burgers with sweet potato fries. The sweet potato fries are going to be prepared in the air fryer, so they're light and healthy. Let's get started. Okay, we're going to begin by making the sweet potatoes and preparing them because I read online that soaking the potato wedges in cold water for an hour helps them become very crispy when they're air fried. To be honest, I don't believe it, but we're going to see what happens. The only time I've had crispy sweet potato fries is when they're actually fried in oil, but we'll give this a shot so that way I'll say that I tried it. Okay, so I'll peel my potatoes. I have 4 large sweet potatoes here. I'll peel them and cut them into wedges. Make sure that you cut them into uniform pieces so that way they fry or bake evenly. Then we're gonna soak these in cold water while I prepare everything else. So moving on, we're gonna get the chicken patties ready. I usually buy already ground chicken thigh meat. I would not recommend using breast for this because breast is very, very dry. The chicken thigh meat stays really nice and juicy, and you're gonna thank me when you try these because they're so juicy and delicious. I'm going to grind the meat myself because I forgot to buy some ground chicken thighs, but it takes 2 seconds to do it in the food processor. But we'll grind the meat last first. I'll prepare everything else that's going in. So I'll peel an onion. This is a large onion. It's gonna add lots of flavor. Just get that peel off and cut it into wedges so that way it processes evenly in the food processor. I'll just slice these scallions here, thinly slice them all the way down to the white part and set them aside. We'll put the onion in the food processor. I don't like to add the whole onion to the food processor because it doesn't come out even. Some of the onion will melt and then we'll have like really big pieces. So I do it in 2 to 3 batches. Pulse the onion until it's finely chopped and then add it to a bowl along with garlic cloves. I like to add 2 to 4 garlic cloves. You measure that with your heart too. Make sure that they're already grated, or you can pulse them in the food processor if you don't already have grated garlic on hand. Next, I'm going to take a handful of fresh parsley and pulse that a few times until it's finely chopped and add that to the bowl. Now it's time to make the ground chicken. It's really easy to grind meat in a food processor. If you've never done it, you can just do it in a few seconds in here. We're just going to do the same thing. I have these boneless, skinless chicken thighs, 2 pounds of them. I'll put a few pieces in the food processor at a time so that way it processes evenly, and I'm just going to pulse this a few times until everything is finely chopped and resembles ground meat. So this is going to go in the big bowl along with all of the remaining ingredients. So we're going to add 3/4 of a cup of panko breadcrumbs. Unseasoned breadcrumbs are best. You don't have to use panko. You can use regular Italian breadcrumbs if you'd like. 1.5 teaspoons of salt, some freshly cracked black pepper, 2 heaping tablespoons of Greek yogurt, 2 teaspoons of dried thyme, and then I'll crack an egg on the side of the bowl and just whisk it up. Now I usually mix meatballs and things like that with my hands, but there's something about raw chicken that I just can't. I have to put gloves on. You can do this with clean hands too. Just mix everything really well until everything is properly combined and comes together. You can even add some feta cheese to this mixture. I was going to, and then I thought I'll leave it out and just add it to my burger at the end. You'll see how good it's going to be the way we're going to do it. But if you want to, you can add some feta cheese to this. You could add some sun-dried tomatoes. At this point, I'm going to transfer the chicken patty mixture to my counter, and I'll cut it into 8 equal portions. I realize that these portions are really big. So you can get 8 big patties out of this, or you can get 12 medium-sized patties. You can even make meatballs out of this. I'll leave it up to you, but go ahead and shape the patties into the size that you want. Transfer them to a baking tray or 2 that's lined with parchment paper, and then chill these either in the refrigerator or the freezer for about 30 minutes so that way they can set. And this is going to help them hold together when we pan fry them later on. Moving on, we're going to make the sauce. So the sauce for this is delicious. I've made this so many times on the channel for various recipes, but this is my yogurt dill sauce, and it's really easy to make. And I'm going to use this sauce for the burgers and as a dipping sauce for the sweet potatoes, so make extra. It's delicious. So you want some Greek yogurt, about 2 garlic cloves that are grated. Now we're going to add a little bit of mayo, so half the amount of mayo or a little bit less. About a tablespoon or 2 of white vinegar. I love using white balsamic vinegar. I find that it has more flavor. Some freshly cracked black pepper, and then I'm going to finely chop some fresh dill and add it in here. If you don't have fresh dill, you can definitely use dry dill instead. Mix that all up until everything's combined and set it aside. And then I'm going to prepare all the toppings for the burger. I have some feta here, some baby lettuce leaves, but you can use regular romaine lettuce or iceberg lettuce for this. I'll slice up a tomato and put it in there, and then red onion is really nice in this too. I also have some pickles on my plate. That way everybody can assemble their burgers with their favorite toppings. Now it's time to make the sweet potatoes. So I'll drain the water from the potatoes, pat them really nice and dry with a paper towel to get all of that moisture off. And then we're gonna drizzle some olive oil over them, season with salt, freshly cracked black pepper. I like to put lots of garlic powder on them so that way they have a lot of flavor. And cumin goes really well with sweet potatoes. It adds a little bit of earthiness to it. So about a heaping teaspoon of cumin. You could add a little more if you'd like. Toss everything all together, and then I'm going to preheat my air fryer to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. And these are going to bake in several batches. I have made the mistake before where I filled up that air fryer basket and then they're very soggy. So don't do that. Just put one even layer so that way the basket is not overcrowded with potatoes. And then these are going to bake for about 15 minutes or until they're crispy on the edges and fully cooked through. Transfer them to a big bowl, and each time you add the batch to the bowl, you can add some crushed dried oregano to the potatoes and just keep air frying them until they're all done. And I was right. These taste really good, but they're not like fried air fries, but they're still pretty delicious. I also like to top these with some crumbled feta while they're nice and warm so the feta can warm up a little bit. And that's it. The sweet potato fries are ready. We're going to pan fry our chicken patties now and then assemble the burners. So I have a cast iron skillet heating over medium heat. I'll add a little bit of olive oil to it, and then 3 patties fit in mine, but however many fit, you can just put them in there. And these are going to cook until they're nice and golden all around. It takes between 6 to 8 minutes per side for the really thick patties. If you're doing smaller patties, just keep an eye on them. About 4 or 5 minutes on each side should be perfect. If you have a meat thermometer, it's a good time to use it. And the internal temperature, once it reaches 165 degrees Fahrenheit, they're ready. But right before it reaches that temperature, this is where I like to top them with some feta cheese. And I love to use Munster cheese for this, but you can use cheddar, mozzarella, whatever your favorite cheese is. Put it on top for that final minute, minute and a half of cooking so the cheeses soften and melt. And then when you assemble everything, it's just going to be so good. I like to assemble my burgers by first of all warming the buns in the same pan where all that flavor is, just until they're warm through. I like to put a little bit of that dill sauce on the bottom bun, stack it with the lettuce, tomato, onion. You could add some pickles on the bottom or on top. Put that chicken burger on top and then a little bit more sauce on the top bun. You could add some pickles on top at this point, and it is ready to serve. Look at how juicy it is. I'm gonna slice into it just so I could show you exactly how juicy it is. It's so delicious. It's time to eat it. Oh my goodness. Best chicken burger I've ever had. All that Mediterranean flavor in there with the parsley and the onion, the scallions. You could taste everything, makes it taste so fresh. That chicken is juicy. Juicy. If you love feta, put that feta on there during the last minute like I did with the cheese. Delicious. I think you guys are gonna love it. Let me try the sweet potatoes. Definitely not like fries, but I love sweet potatoes. Soft on the inside and sort of crisp on the outside. There's a lot of flavor in them. I wouldn't call these fries. They're kind of like roasted potatoes. You really cannot get that French fry crispiness in any other way when you're trying to get French fries other than frying it with oil. But it's okay. These are roasted sweet potatoes. Let's just call them that. They're still delicious, very healthy. I'm going to be teaching you how to make lemony roasted chicken and potatoes the Greek way. I'm surprised I haven't brought this recipe to you sooner. I have taught you how to make roasted lemony chicken before and roasted lemony potatoes, but never put the two together. This is a classic Greek dish that's served in every Greek home. And these days, one-pan meals, also known as sheet pan meals, are trending. Everybody's making a version of them, and I'm deciding to bring you my version because I made this the other day and I shared a picture on Facebook and on Instagram and everybody wanted the recipe. So here it is. It doesn't get simpler than this. Let's go over the ingredients and then we're gonna get started. So over here I have some chicken thighs. You could use thighs, a combination of thighs and drumsticks, but we only have thighs today. Skin on and bone in. We have some potatoes that I've peeled and they're soaking in water to prevent them from going brown. The spices are ground cumin, lots of salt, some crushed red pepper flakes, lots of dried oregano, some black pepper. We're gonna need some olive oil, a little bit of parsley for garnish. and then some whole garlic cloves and lemon juice. So when we're using lemon juice for any recipe that you're using to cook, for any recipe that you're gonna cook, you always want to use fresh lemon juice from a lemon, never the stuff that comes in a jar. That stuff you can use for cleaning, but that's my little thing for today. I'll leave it there. Now, you also see paprika here. Paprika is optional. If you want your chicken to have a little bit of color, you can add about a teaspoon of paprika. I'm going to leave it out because it's not traditional, but it's something that you can do. Again, you can substitute anything over here that you don't like. If you don't like cumin powder, leave it out. If you've never tried it, though, give it a try because it does give a nice earthy taste. If you're not a fan of oregano, or if you don't have it, you could use thyme, you could use fresh rosemary. Let me know what you're doing in the comment section down below. So we're going to begin by making the marinade. So the marinade is super simple. I'm making my Lemony, which is a lemony olive oil marinade that I love to use in almost everything. Chicken, fish, salad, it's great stuff. So we're going to put some olive oil in a bowl. And lots of freshly squeezed lemon juice, because it's going to tenderize the chicken and add lots of freshness and flavor. And then I'm going to grate some garlic cloves. Now the recipe says 2 to 3 cloves. These are small cloves, and we have a lot of chicken, so I want to have a lot of flavor. So I'm just going to grate 4 of these cloves. Okay, so now I'm just going to set the marinade aside. I'm going to whisk it together in just a couple minutes, and I'm going to cut my potatoes. Now traditionally, Lemony chicken and potatoes is made with potato wedges, like that's the shape that we cut them in. But because I want this to cook all together in about an hour, I'm just going to cut the potatoes in cubes so that way they cook evenly and quickly. So my potato cubes are ready. I'm using russet potatoes. You can use russet potatoes or golden potatoes. Any baking potato will do. I'm not a huge fan of the red potatoes because they don't roast as well as these do. You could even use little baby potatoes, and then that would really literally eliminate the step because you would just peel the skins off or leave them on if you're a fan of the skin and just cut them in half because they're really small, and that would work here. So now I'm just going to put everything in my baking tray. Everything is in the pan. Now I'm just going to whisk the lemon, olive oil, and garlic together. And I'm just going to pour it over the top of everything. That's that. We're going to mix up all of these dried spices and herbs. And then we're just going to put it all over. You can just put it all on top like that. And then with the cook's best tools, your 2 clean hands, go ahead and mix everything up so the marinade can go everywhere. And that's it. The last step to this, or the final step, is to put a little bit of water, like a 1/4 cup or so, in the pan. And we add the water in just so that way at the end product it'll have a little bit more sauce and it won't burn on the bottom. But that's it. This is ready. This is going to go in the oven. The oven is preheated to 425 degrees Fahrenheit. We're going to pop it in there and we're going to let it bake until the chicken is fully cooked and the potatoes are tender. That's going to take between 45 minutes to an hour. Honestly, it usually takes me an hour, otherwise the potatoes are still kind of hard, and you want this to be perfectly cooked. Now, at the end, you could also raise the temperature a bit so that it can get a really nice color. Maybe the last 10 minutes or so, you can raise it to 450 degrees. Just keep an eye on it so it doesn't burn. I'll show you what it looks like as soon as it comes out. It took exactly 1 hour for my roasted chicken and potatoes to be ready. The last 15 minutes, I did raise the temperature all the way up to 475 degrees Fahrenheit, just so it could get nice and golden all over. So it just smells incredible around here. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to put some of these parsley leaves that have been washed over the chicken just to garnish it on top and just to add a beautiful pop of color and some freshness. Even though it's piping hot, I'm just going to take some out to give it a taste. You can still add some salt if it needs it, but I really don't think it will. I think it's going to be just fine. Let me get some of that sauce, that lemony, yummy sauce. What I like to do is to serve this with just some toasted bread. I have some rosemary bread here. I'm going to taste the sauce first because it is calling my name. There's so much sauce, so much goodness to pick up. This is perfect. I'm just going to mash up the potatoes because that's how I like to eat roasted potatoes when they're cooked with meat. I think they taste delicious. I'm going to take a little bit of this chicken. This is how I like to eat it. I don't know about you guys, but whatever I like to eat in my childhood, I like it even more now as an adult. Goodness. These are just about the best mashed potatoes ever. I need to go and have a second bite. Just the right amount of lemon. So much flavor from the herbs. The garlic, just the right amount. I'm going to teach you how to make the ultimate Greek-American gyro sandwich. We're going to start by putting the garlic cloves in. I have a lot of garlic here, so I'm going to put it in there and I'm going to let them mince up. So the recipe that I'm going to have online is going to be for 2 pounds of meat. I'm using 3 pounds of meat today, so I am using a little bit more onion. I have 2 small onions here instead of 1 big onion for the 2 pounds. And I'm going to put them in the food processor and pulse them until they're finely chopped. Okay, so the onion and garlic are ready. I'm going to add the meat. So I have ground beef over here. This ground beef is 90% lean and 10% fat. I also have 2 sprigs of rosemary that I'm going to add just the leaves. Some salt. Now my formula for the salt is 1 teaspoon per pound. If you don't like food, if you can't have that much salt, you can just put as much as you like in here. Then we're going to do a heaping teaspoonful of ground cumin, and I'm going to add just a little bit more since we have that extra pound of beef in there. 2 teaspoons of dried oregano, but I'm going to go ahead and add 1 more. Some black pepper. And for a little kick of heat, crushed red pepper flakes. If you don't want them, just leave them out. And I'm just going to go ahead and pulse this until everything is combined. And in between, you can go in with a spatula and kind of mix everything all up. Trust me, it doesn't look that appetizing now, but this is delicious. It makes for the most delicious sandwiches. Perfect, this is ready. So now, if you're making the 2 pounds of meat that's gonna be listed on the recipe, then all you need is a loaf pan. You're just gonna transfer all of this meat into the loaf pan and just press it in there so that way it's nice and compact. But I have that extra pound of beef in here, so I am gonna put it into an 8-inch, this is a square baking pan. It's almost 3 inches deep. But use whatever you have. You can make this in a round pan too. It doesn't matter. The thing is, it should fit very compact and snug into whatever you're putting it in. So once it's in the pan, you want to bake it in a preheated oven. My oven is preheated at 325 degrees Fahrenheit. This is going to bake for about an hour or until the internal temperature reaches 165 degrees Fahrenheit. I usually look for color. Once it's golden brown on top, it takes about an hour, sometimes an hour and 15 minutes. Then once it's done baking, you want to take it out and let it rest completely. Let it rest completely, cover it with plastic wrap, and refrigerate it so that way all of the juices can be reabsorbed. This is much better sliced once it's cold. If you absolutely must slice it that same day that you're making it, then let it rest for about an hour before you do so. So I'm going to bake it, then I'm going to slice it, then we're going to go ahead and form our sandwiches. So when the gyro has chilled in the refrigerator, it's going to be so much easier to slice. This does taste best when the slices are as thin as they can get, because then it tastes just like the original, the one that you would get at a Greek restaurant here in America. So do chill it if you have the chance. Otherwise, you can definitely cut it into thicker slices too, because if it's at room temperature or warm and you try to cut thin slices, it's just going to crumble on you, so you won't be able to get those very thin slices like the ones that I cut here. Then once you slice them, then go ahead and transfer the slices to a container, an airtight container that's going to stay good in the refrigerator, and then pour all of the juices that are in the baking pan on top, so that way all of that flavor is still there. This will keep fresh in your refrigerator all week long, and it is perfect to serve alongside eggs. You can put it on top of salads and eat it like a nice salad for like a weekday lunch or a weeknight dinner if you're keeping things low carb. There's so much flavor in this, you will not miss the bread. But if you want to make that delicious pita sandwich, then go ahead and make homemade pita bread. I'll put the link right here up in the card section. And that pita, by the way, is the best pita that you'll ever taste in your whole entire life. It's soft and delicious, and you could turn this into a pocket sandwich, or the way that they're served at the stores here in the restaurants in America. Now, you also go ahead and slice some red onion or whatever onion you have, some tomatoes, some bell peppers. You're definitely going to need some creamy tzatziki, which is a Greek yogurt, and shredded cucumber and garlic sauce that just goes great with this. Now you're gonna have to warm these a little bit. So I have a cast iron skillet heating over medium heat. I'm gonna drizzle just a tiny bit of olive oil on it, and I'm gonna cook them on each side until they're slightly crisp and golden, and then we're gonna put the sandwich together. So once the meat is nice and golden, then go ahead and warm up a pita and then put a little bit of tzatziki, lettuce, tomato, and bell pepper on top. And then the crisp golden slices of gyro meat go on top of that. I like to add a little bit more tzatziki, and now it is time to take a bite. Just looks amazing. This is not the prettiest thing to do on camera, but I'll take one for the team. Oh my God. That whole combination, it is better than a gyro that you'll get at a local Greek restaurant. I mean, if you want to make something healthy and delicious and get all of that flavor at home, make sure you make the pita bread with it. The gyro is perfectly crisp after it's cooked on the cast iron skillet. It gets nice and crisp in some places, but it's still juicy in the center. And it is loaded with flavor. All of those herbs you can really taste in there, the perfect amount of seasoning. And that tzatziki sauce is just creamy and the perfect, nice, refreshing touch to the whole sandwich. We're gonna be taking juicy chicken thigh meat and we're gonna marinate it in a blend of Middle Eastern spices that's gonna create a robust and flavorful chicken shawarma. You can take this chicken once it's cooked and put it in a pita bread. We're also gonna make a delicious garlic sauce to go with it. Put it over a salad bowl and just eat your heart out. It's gonna be delicious, easy to prepare, and super flavorful. Let's go over the ingredients so we can get started. We're gonna use some olive oil, freshly squeezed lemon juice, an onion, some garlic cloves. I'm using chicken thigh meat, but you can alternate with chicken breast and thigh meat and do a combination of both, or just use one or the other. And then all of the flavor comes from the spices. We have some salt, cumin powder, black pepper, turmeric, a little pinch of cinnamon, some paprika. This is sweet paprika, not the smoked variety. Some ground coriander, sumac, black pepper, and crushed red pepper flakes. First things first, we're gonna marinate the chicken, and we're gonna begin with a half a cup of olive oil. And you could do a quarter to a third of a cup of lemon juice, depends how tangy you like it. You know I like it tangy, so I'm gonna do a third of a cup. Next, we're gonna grate the garlic cloves. I have 5 garlic cloves here. And we're gonna mix up all of the spices and the salt and pepper, and we're gonna add it to the chicken. That ground cardamom smells so good. Just a little bit goes a very long way. All of these spices are gonna add tons and tons of flavor. And we're just gonna mix everything up to make sure that the chicken is nice and coated. And the last ingredient that's gonna go in here is an onion. I'm just gonna slice it and add it to this, mix everything all together, cover it, and then I'm gonna put it in the refrigerator and I'm gonna let it marinate for at least an hour. It could also marinate overnight, 6 to 8 hours. Then you're gonna get maximum flavor out of this thing. But if you're making this in a hurry, you can definitely cook it right away. It is gonna have tons and tons of flavor. Just that if you have the time and you plan ahead and you marinate it, it's just gonna be even more flavorful. So while the chicken is marinating, we're gonna move on to making that delicious garlicky sauce that we love that's in the shawarma sandwiches. A lot of times though, when I eat shawarmas outside, it does taste really good while I'm eating it, and then I'm left with this really heavy, icky feeling. And it's because lots of times the garlic sauce is just straight up mayonnaise and tons of garlic, and both of those things are very heavy and they just don't leave you feeling great at the end once you're done eating it. I make mine with a combination of yogurt, mayonnaise, 1 garlic clove, and a couple tablespoons of fresh lemon juice. The lemon juice really freshens everything up. The yogurt keeps it nice and tangy and light, and then the mayonnaise adds that really nice creaminess and that luxurious texture. And the garlic, all we need is 1 garlic clove because we are going to grate it. And once you grate garlic, it gets really, really strong, so you don't need that much. So we're going to basically add all of the ingredients to the bowl. Grate the garlic clove and 2 tablespoons of fresh lemon juice. Just mix everything all together. And I'm using whole milk plain yogurt. It's not Greek yogurt. If Greek yogurt is what you have, go ahead and use that. I just really like the consistency of plain regular yogurt because it doesn't get, the sauce stays nice and thin. So that's why I use that. But like I said, use what you have. I'm just gonna give the sauce a taste. That's perfect. It doesn't need salt, pepper, nothing. This is good to go. This sauce tastes good on everything, so you're gonna wanna have some leftovers, trust me. I'm just gonna set this aside, and this stays fresh in the refrigerator for many days, so you can just put this in an airtight container and then pack yourself a delicious lunch to work or send it with the kids to school. Now we're gonna move on to grilling the chicken. So my chicken has been marinating for an hour, and now it's time to cook it. You can cook this on the grill. If you have a grill, just fire up a grill, put it over medium high, put the heat over medium high, or the fire I should say, and then put all of the chicken and the onions with the marinade on the grill and let it cook about 6 to 7 minutes per side, or until the internal temperature of the chicken reaches 165 degrees Fahrenheit. Today I'm going to cook it using my oven. I'm going to set the broiler to high. So make sure you set your broiler to high and put the oven rack on the highest, as high as it goes basically, so it's close to the heating element. So I put a cooling rack on top of a baking tray, and I'm just going to put the chicken on the cooling rack. I have tried doing this directly onto a baking tray, and the chicken does not come out as juicy as it does when you put the cooling rack on top. All of the juices and the fat drips down to the bottom, and then you're left with that delicious juicy chicken. So use the cooling rack if you have one, or cook it on the grill. You could also do this on the stovetop if you wanted to, if you're making a smaller batch. I find that anytime I make chicken shawarma, I like to make a bigger batch because it is great for taking to work or sending it with the kids to school. So if I'm doing it and I'm marinating chicken, I am gonna make a big batch, and it does create a lot of smoke if you're gonna cook a lot of chicken that's marinated in all these delicious spices and onions. If you're gonna cook it on a stovetop, it is gonna create a lot of smoke, and you're gonna have to wash the pan out many times. That's why I prefer to either do it on the grill or in the oven, but it's totally up to you. If you're gonna use a large onion, just use half of one. I have all of this onion left over. It will definitely not go to waste. I'll let it cook on the bottom. So I'm gonna cook this under the broiler for 16 to 18 minutes. The chicken is gonna start to get nice and golden brown on top. I will show you what it looks like as soon as it comes out. So the chicken was ready in 18 minutes. Halfway through, you're gonna wanna go in and just flip the chicken over so that way it browns evenly and cooks evenly on each side. Once it comes out of the oven, let it sit and rest for about 10 minutes and go ahead and slice it into strips. Put it in a big bowl and gather up all those delicious onions that have caramelized and softened, and combine them with the chicken, mix everything all together. And now you're ready to put your chicken shawarma together. And now I'm gonna make a pita. I have over here a pita bread. I have some of the sauce, and then I have some salad. This is just ready-made salad that I buy from Costco. My favorite one to get, and this is not sponsored in any way, is this Mediterranean Crunch chopped salad kit. So I have my pita bread that I slightly warmed. I'm also gonna take this delicious garlic sauce. I'm gonna make a layer down the center. Then I'm gonna take some of the salad and put it on top. There's some little pieces of feta cheese in there too. Then some of this perfectly cooked, juicy chicken shawarma. Now, if you want to get it extra crisp like you get it in the shops, you're going to want to take it and heat up a cast iron grill. And once you slice it, go ahead and warm it through on there about 30 seconds on each side until it gets those crispy bits all around. Look at how beautiful that looks. Time to take a bite. Oh my God. Way better than store-bought. The chicken has so much flavor. It is so juicy. That creamy sauce is the bomb on here, so delicious. I'm gonna teach you how to make a quick, simple, and easy dessert that you can serve any time of the year. I feel like it's more of a fall dessert, but with ice cream on top, it makes it perfect for the summer too. I'll be teaching you how to make my baklava puff pastry cinnamon rolls. They're so good and so easy to make. Let's get started. Okay, so we're gonna begin by making the filling. I've melted 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter, and I'm gonna set that aside. And now we're just gonna get our pecans ready. You can use pecans for this, walnuts, pistachios, almonds, or a combination of your favorite nuts. I'm using pecans today. I feel like they go really well, but I have made this with almonds and walnuts, and both ways are delicious. So I'll take a heaping cup of pecans and put it in a little food processor. Pulse everything until they're finely chopped and transfer it to a bowl. To the bowl, I'm gonna add 2/3 of a cup of light brown sugar, 2 heaping teaspoons of cinnamon, and either a 1/4 teaspoon or a 1/2 teaspoon of cloves. So I prefer the 1/4 teaspoon just because if you add too much of clove powder, it can tend to be a little bit bitter. So mix everything all up, and then I also like to add a cup of raisins to this. You can leave the raisins out if you don't like them. Mix everything up, and now we're gonna assemble it. This is so simple to do. I have a large puff pastry sheet that's at room temperature. I'll pour all of that butter on top. Make sure that the butter has had a chance to cool. Otherwise, it'll run off the puff pastry. It kind of stays in place when it's a little bit cooled down. Spread it over the puff pastry, and then dump all of that sugar and nut mixture on top and spread it out evenly all over the top. I also like to press it in to make sure it stays in place, and then I'll roll it up kind of tightly. If you don't roll it up tightly, they'll open up a lot during cooking time. So roll it up into a large log and put it on a parchment-lined baking sheet. At this point, you have to chill them in the freezer or in the refrigerator. They'll be much easier to cook and they'll hold their shape. As they're being chilled in the refrigerator for about 15-20 minutes, or the freezer, I prefer the freezer, it does a better job. Preheat the oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and then we're gonna slice these up into 12 equal pieces, and you can bake these either on the same baking tray with the parchment paper. You can also bake them in little muffin tins or in a 9 by 13 inch baking pan, it's up to you. These are gonna bake in the oven for about 30 to 35 minutes or until they are nice and puffy and slightly golden all around. While they're baking, I'm gonna make a little syrup that's gonna be poured on top with just a half a cup of honey and the juice of an orange. You could do the juice of a lemon and whisk it up. It's gonna look like the honey is gonna begin to seize, but the more you whisk it, it'll just smooth out and it'll just be the perfect pouring consistency. As soon as they come out of the oven, you can pour the syrup on top. I love to serve these with some vanilla ice cream. They're so good. The house smells amazing. They're just delicious. You guys are gonna love them. Oh my goodness, the house smells so good. Anything baking in the oven that has butter and puff pastry and cinnamon in it just is very comforting to me. I put raisins in mine because we really like them that way, and I feel like cinnamon rolls usually have raisins, but you can leave the raisins out and add your favorite dried fruit in there. Cranberries are really nice. Dates would go well in it too, or you can do chocolate chips instead. And you can play around with the nuts too. You could do a pistachio flavored roll. There's just so many options. I feel like in the fall I should do one with almond, like an almond paste. That sounds really good. But it's time for the taste test. So good. The puff pastry is buttery and flaky. The nut mixture in the center and some parts got caramelized, especially on the bottom. The raisins are nice and chewy. That ice cream on top melting into the pastry is just decadent. Now, I would serve these slightly warm so that way when the ice cream hits it, it kind of melts and creates a little sauce on the bottom. But you can serve these without ice cream and a nice cup of coffee. We're gonna make a Mediterranean chickpea salad. From start to finish, it takes about 15 minutes to put together. It keeps fresh in the refrigerator for days, so it's a great dish to make if you like to meal prep. It's so zesty and delicious and also very healthy. Let's get started. So we're gonna start off with two 15-ounce cans of chickpeas. They're also known as garbanzo beans. I like to buy them in the can because I throw them into rice pilafs, into salads, stews. They're just so versatile, so many things you could do with them. But if you boil your own, that's fine too. If you're using canned, make sure to rinse them really well and then drain them. Add them to your big bowl. And now I'll move them out of the way because we're gonna start just chopping up all the rest of the ingredients. So we're gonna use a large cucumber. This is an English cucumber that I've just peeled. I'm just gonna cut the end off and I'm gonna dice this. You could put whatever you want in this. I usually put whatever I put in a big Greek salad. I have a chopped Greek salad recipe that I love to serve at dinner parties, and this is pretty much almost everything that's in it. So I like to use English cucumbers because the seeds are very delicate in them. Many times regular cucumbers have huge seeds in the center, and if you're using those, it would be a good idea to slice them down the middle, just slice them in half, and using a spoon or something, just kind of get all the seeds out. But if you're using an English cucumber, you don't have to worry about any of that. Then I have 5 or 6 scallions, also known as green onions. You can use a red onion instead, or a combination. You could do like half of a red onion or a quarter of a red onion and maybe 3 or 4 scallions. Scallions are just very delicate, so I love the way they taste in salads. Plus, I didn't have any red onions. A sweet Vidalia onion would also work in this. And I've already washed these scallions really well. If you didn't wash yours, slice them up, put them in a big bowl of cold water, then lift them out and put them in a colander and drain them really well. And I like to go all the way down to the ends of the onion. Get the scallions in the bowl. Then I have Kalamata olives. The good thing is in the supermarkets now you can find these already pitted. So if you do, if they are easy to find, you could go ahead and pick a jar of those up. You can use your favorite olives in this. If you don't like Kalamata olives, or if you have a combination of other olives, just chop them up and put them in the salad. This is about a half a cup of olives, but this is all about preference. So if you like less, put less, more. If your family doesn't like olives, leave them out. And then I have some grape tomatoes here. I love grape tomatoes because they're nice and sweet. I'm just gonna cut them in half and put them in the bowl. If you get really big ones, you could cut them in thirds. I have 2 roasted red peppers from the jar. You can use a fresh green, red, or yellow, or even an orange bell pepper if you like that instead. I love the roasted red peppers. They're a little smoky, sweet, tender. Just dice those up. And I also love these. They're not traditionally in Greek salad, pepperoncinis, but oops, but they add a nice little briny kick to the salad. They're a little spicy too. I like them, so I'm gonna just slice them and put them in. And then the herbs. I have a bunch of parsley and a small little handful of fresh mint. Use your favorite herbs, dill, basil, whatever you like. Just gonna cut the leaves off and leave the stems. Finely chop. You don't have to put all of this parsley in. I am, because I'm making a really big batch. Plus I love the freshness of parsley. And then let me get these mint leaves off. And of course, a big chunk of feta cheese. This is sheep's milk feta, which is the best. It's creamy, it's delicate, and it has the best flavor. If you can find sheep's milk feta, go ahead and use that. And now we're just gonna put the dressing together. So I have 2 garlic cloves that I've grated. You can use 1 if 2 is a little too much. Then your favorite vinegar. I love this white balsamic vinegar that comes from Crete. It's in our shop if you'd like to get some. You could use red wine vinegar, or you could even use a balsamic. This is a white balsamic and it has a little hint of rosemary in it. You need about 2-3 tablespoons of it, because I'm also going to add the juice of a lemon for some depth of flavor. Not the whole lemon, half the lemon should be good enough. That's also another about 2 tablespoons or so if you measure it. And then really good quality olive oil. You need about 1/4 to 1/3 of a cup, and a heaping teaspoon of dried oregano. Just gonna mix it all up. And I'm gonna pour it over the salad. Give everything a mix, and I am going to add a little bit of salt and pepper once everything is mixed a little bit. I didn't add the salt because the feta cheese was right on top, and feta cheese is already salty. You don't want to add more salt onto the feta. Just a nice little hefty pinch. Some black pepper, just a little bit. And there you have it. A beautiful Mediterranean chickpea salad ready in no time. You can transfer the chickpea salad onto a beautiful serving platter. I like to use this one that I have that has the lemons on it because it's nice and vibrant, just like the salad. It is time for the taste test, and I want to make sure I get a little bit of everything on the spoon. Delicious. This would go great with lamb, chicken, even fish. Serve this alongside anything. You could even eat it like this for a nice lunch. Take it to work, pack it in the kids' lunches. So nutritious and delicious. The dressing is really zesty and fresh. All those herbs, the mint and the parsley really brighten it up. A lot of veggies in here, a lot of flavor. The whole thing is just perfect. I hope you guys give this a try. You can print the recipe out on the website, dimitrasdishes.com. If you would like to order any of the olive oil or the white balsamic vinegar, that's also in our shop on the website. If you want to learn how to make more delicious salad recipes, click over here and I'll see you right over there. Yes, sis.